afternoon and welcome to the little apartment on the prairie. So I am sitting here peeling some sweet potatoes, and while I do that, I wanted to talk to you all a little bit about fishing. If you're like super squeamish and the idea of killing a fish, bothers you, you might not enjoy this video. I promise not to be too gory. And I'm probably more squeamish about that kind of thing than most people, so hopefully it doesn't bother any of you. I've been learning to fish the last few weeks, which kind of came as a surprise to me. I thought before about fishing, not to feed myself, because I don't eat meat, including fish. I don't eat any animals, but my dog does. So do my cats, but they eat cat food, or mostly cat food. But my dog eats this raw food diet. I've talked about it a little bit before. He eats raw meat, he eats organs, he eats stuff that, people generally, most people would not wish to eat. And he enjoys it very much. And he also eats fish, and he eats them raw. He eats the whole thing, heads, tails, fins, eats the whole thing. If it's a really big fish, I cut it in half, but otherwise he just eats the whole thing. Anyway, I thought about fishing for some of his food. I really briefly thought about hunting for some of his food and decided I am not cut out to be a hunter. Besides the fact that I probably wouldn't be very good at it, like physically, actually shooting at something and hitting my target. I couldn't do it. I'd feel too bad. Like, I guess if I had to do it to feed my dog, I probably would. I don't think I'd let him starve, but man, I would have a hard time. I'd shoot a deer or a rabbit and break down crying. I know I would. So anyway, I have this neighbor. When I didn't have a car, I rode to the food pantry with her, and she asked me if I wanted to go fishing because she likes to go fishing. And I said, well, okay, that sounds interesting. I mean, I don't know if I like fishing or not, but I like being outside. And if I catch anything, my dog will enjoy eating it. So, I said I didn't have any fishing gear. I didn't know how to fish. I mean, I don't know, the first thing about it. And she said that's okay. She had an extra fishing rod, and, so we went fishing. And, I wasn't afraid of touching worms. I have a compost bin that has worms in it, and I touch them. But I didn't know how you put them on the hook. I'm like, so do I just stick a hook in the middle of the worm or what? So she showed me how to put the worm on the hook. And she shows me how to cast the rod. And so if you were like I was a few weeks ago and don't know anything about fishing, you're probably sitting there like, well, I wonder what there is to learn. Don't you just you put this hook on a line in the water and you hope a fish bites it? And there's a little more to it than that, believe it or not. And if you know something about fishing, you're probably laughing at me because there's a lot to it. So casting the rod, I am not good at physical things, at outdoorsy, sporty kind of things. I like to be outside. I enjoy gardening. I enjoy camping. But I'm not good at things like that. Like I said, if I was hunting, I probably would shoot at something and not be able to hit the target. So I'm sitting there with this fishing rod, and, she shows me how to cast. And so I try it, and I get the rod, and I do this, and my fishing line goes about 2 feet in front of me, which you obviously want to go further. So then I go to do it, and somehow I fling it back behind me. And then there's a tree back there, and I get the hook stuck in the tree. So then I finally get it to go out there a little ways, but there's a big trick to get it to go as far as you want it, but not further, or to go where you want it. I try to cast it right in front of me, and it goes way over there. And imagine this repeated times. Okay, so it took me a really long time to get the hang of doing that. And my neighbor is just cracking up. But, she's like, do you want me to just do it for you? I can cast for you. I'm like, no, because I want to learn how to do it. And I'm only going to learn to do it if I practice it, if I try it, right? So after we went fishing a few times, and I used her rod, and we caught some fish. And the one lake that we've gone to the most, we mostly catch bluegill, but we've caught a couple catfish and a couple trout. I caught the tiniest little baby catfish ever. He was like the size of like this piece of sweet potato. I mean, you know, like not as big as my hand. We threw them back. We throw the little ones back, you know. But we caught some fish, and so I got to bring some fish home for my dog, and I'm like, well, that's kind of fun. It's fun when you catch things. But I did learn something else, which comes as no surprise to me that I'm squeamish about. But I get home the first day with these fish, and I have this bucket of fish, and I dump it into my sink, and one of the fish is still alive. And it's like flopping around in my sink. And I didn't know what to do. I'm thinking, well, you know, it's suffering now that it's not in this bucket of water anymore. It can't breathe. And I need to do something. I need to kill it to relieve its suffering. I'm like, I should hit it in the head or something so it, you know, it's not suffering. But come here, Isaac, bring me your Kong. Bring it here. But I felt really squeamish about that. And I'm thinking, Sassy, leave my sweet potatoes alone. You don't need to eat sweet potato peel. I was about to say you don't like sweet potato peels, but she actually probably would eat them. But don't get in the sweet potatoes that I'm going to eat, please. So, I'm thinking, well, if I just leave it there in the sink for a little bit, it'll die. But then I'm thinking that's cruel because it's suffering. Like, I mean, I know I'm going to feed it to my dog, but that doesn't, I still don't want to make it suffer. So I finally picked up like this quart-sized glass canning jar that was like a real heavy canning jar and bashed it in the head. And I had to do it a couple times before it killed it. And I did not enjoy that. And I felt bad about, you know, because I don't want it to suffer. So the next time we went fishing, I asked my neighbor, so what do you do when you get home and you still have a fish that's alive? Because, you know, she's cleaning these fish and freezing them. She's going to, like, eat this fish all winter is her plan. And so I asked her that, and she's like, well, I just cut its head off. And I was like, well, it's alive? And she said, well, that's, you know, that's just how I learned to do it. She's like, it kills it real quick. I'm like, well, I guess it would. So I told her, you know, I hit it in the head with a jar, and she's like, well, yeah, you can do that too, you know, but if you want, you can just cut its head off, and that'll kill it real quick. So there's that. And I feel bad. Like, I got a catfish yesterday that was almost big enough to keep, but probably not quite. I was going to throw it back because it wasn't that big, and we did end up throwing it back. But the way it had the hook was like through the inside of its mouth and sticking out its eyeball. And so I felt terrible. We're like, you know, my neighbor's helping me get this hook out. And it's hard for me to get the hooks out because I get squeamish about stuff like that because I feel like, well, I'm hurting it. And yeah, I'm going to kill it and feed it to my dog maybe, but not this one actually. I was going to throw it back, which I did because it was small enough that, you know, I wasn't going to keep it. But whether I'm going to keep it or not, I don't want to hurt it. I don't want to suffer. So I was like, I don't know, is it too hurt? Because if they get too injured by getting the hook or getting the hook out of them or whatever, then we've been keeping them even when they're small because, like, there was one that was pretty small, and so I threw it back because it was small enough that, you know, it was too small to keep, really. But it had really swallowed the hook, and when we got the hook out, come here, Isaac, bring it to me. When we got the hook out of its mouth, it injured it, and without being gory, give it to me, it injured it, and so I threw it back in, and it swam for a few seconds, and then it ended up just like flopping over on its side and floating, and it was obviously dead. And if it's going to die, then I don't want it to go to waste, so I'd rather bring it home. So anyway, I decided this catfish, you know, hopefully was okay, it was not too injured, so I threw him back in the lake, and he swam away really fast, and so I think he's okay, except now he just has one eye. But I felt really bad because I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to make them suffer. So that part is hard for me. So anyway, I decided that since I'd gone fishing several times and I found that it was something that, I could actually catch some fish. And I found it pretty enjoyable, and despite the parts that make me squeamish, and I decided that I was going to get my own fishing gear. So I went off to Walmart because there's a farm place near me that also sells fishing gear, but it's super expensive. So I decided to go to Walmart. Well, apparently, if you're interested in buying fishing gear, you have waited too long because everyone has already bought all the fishing gear. There were like 4 fishing rods in the whole Walmart aisle that I had to choose from, and there were all these empty spots. Like the aisle was practically bare. So I had a choice of one that was $49, one that was $59, one that was $89, and one that was $119. So not knowing the difference between any of these types of fishing reels and knowing that I was not spending $89 or $119, I looked at the $49 one and the $59 one and decided to go with $49. My neighbor told me the fishing rod that she was using, she bought earlier this summer for 29 bucks. Well, they were all out of $29 fishing rods. But it turns out the kind I got, it casts differently. I don't know what they're called because I don't know anything about fishing. The one that I was using of my neighbor's, like all the fishing line that's on a spool, it has a cap that goes over it, and you press a button to release the line when you cast it. The kind I have, there's no cap over the line, and there's this little curved wire thing that you flip back and forth to make the line go or make it stop. I'm still trying to figure out how to cast the stupid thing because it doesn't cast like I was used to. And I'm really frustrated, and I wish I had bought one that worked like the one I learned on because it seems easier. But maybe it's not that it's easier, it's just that I don't know what I'm doing with it yet. And I'm so not good at this kind of thing. And I'm trying to be really open to it, and I'd like to encourage all of you to be really open to learning new skills, really any time in your life, but especially right now. Because I think with what's going on in the world today, we need new skills. We're going to need new skills. And you're just not going to be good at a lot of things that you've never done before, especially if it's something totally foreign, like I've never cast a fishing line before. And I can't throw a ball and make it go where I want it to go, or throw it very far. Or I don't know if throwing the ball is really like casting a fishing line, but it seems like it to me. But maybe it's not even similar, and that's like how little I know about it. I'm better at baking. I'm better at things like crocheting or sewing or stuff like that. But there's lots of things there that I don't know what I'm doing with either. I felt more confident learning about gardening than I did learning to fish. But it's all new, and you saw how my first bucket of potatoes turned out. And by the way, some of my sweet potatoes that I was peeling, a couple of them had sprouted. They're organic, and I'm going to try planting them. Even though it's late in the season, I think there's probably 2 months before it freezes, and so I'm hoping that I'll grow some sweet potatoes. We'll see. But you got to be willing to learn new things and to try new things. Come here, Isaac. Don't sit over there and whine at me. Come here. No room service, remember? We do not have room service here at all. So I'm just trying to be open to new things and aware that I can learn new things, and some I'll be good at and some I won't. Some I'll enjoy, some I probably won't, but you're not going to know if you don't try. And a lot of times most things I learn pretty quickly, but not everything. And I'm used to being good at most things that I try, partly because I try things, I guess, that I suspect I'm likely to be good at anyway, but also because I learn quickly. But so it gets frustrating to me when I try to learn something new and I have a hard time learning it. And then I just want to say, never mind, I'm no good at this. But I need to stop doing that, I think, because it really limits the things I can learn to do. And You know, I may need to have some skills that I may not be great at, but I might still need them. So I'm hoping I can get used to the fishing reel that I bought, the fishing rod that I bought. If I can't, I may give up and sell that one and buy the kind that I was using that belonged to my neighbor that was easier for me. But I'm going to keep trying it some with the one I bought. If any of you like to fish and you have any tips for me, please share them because I could use some help. And I will let you know how the sweet potatoes do. I mean, it'll take a while before we even know if they're growing, I guess. I'm going to drill a lot more holes in the bottom of my bucket. I'm going to use the same bucket I had potatoes planted in before, but I'm going to drill a bunch more holes in it so it can drain a lot better. So hopefully I won't have the problem of it getting too wet in the bottom. And I will let you all know how it goes. So don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't yet. And if you want to get notified when I post new videos, hit the little bell, icon, and then YouTube will tell you when I post a new video. Everybody have a great day, stay safe, and we'll talk again soon.